there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Regina, and in today's video I want to show you guys how I refresh my container mix to grow fresh vegetables. So container vegetables require a decent amount of care because water flushes out some of the nutrients in the soil, and the soil tends to become more depleted more quickly than growing in a raised bed or in the ground. And so container veggies generally require more frequent fertilization, more frequent watering, but you can still get great harvests, and it's still a great thing to do. Now, I grow mostly in raised beds, but I do also grow some things in containers. Some just for practicality because certain vegetables just take up a lot of space, and so I can kind of get more bang for my square foot if I put them in containers. And some just because, I don't really have anywhere else to put them. And also I grow certain things in containers, like some herbs and flowers, so that I can move them around to kind of be near where I want them to be. Now, you don't need to buy container soil every single season, but it's a good idea to refresh it, restore some of those nutrients, and freshen it up so that it is in a great state to grow you nice, healthy, fresh fruits and vegetables for the new season. My first step is to dump the soil into a container. For today, I'm using a wheelbarrow that I have because it holds a decent amount of soil. And the reason I do that, one, it just makes it easier to mix in new stuff, and two, I've had some challenges with ants. They are just everywhere out here in North Texas, like everywhere. So I've noticed some that have ended up in my containers, and so I dump them out to make sure that they're not like embedded with ants or anything. Now, I dumped out these 3 buckets that I used last year for my tree collards that did not survive a deep freeze, RIP. But I dumped all the soil into the wheelbarrow just to see, did I see a whole bunch of ants or anything like that crawling around? I did see some, not a ton, but I saw enough to show that in at least one of the containers they were pretty problematic. So I treated the soil with just like boiling water, so a few pots of boiling water to kill the ants that were in there. And now that that's done, I actually did that yesterday. Now that that's done, and I wanted some of the water to evaporate from the soil too, so it wasn't just sopping wet, which has happened. And so now my next steps, after dumping the soil out, I am going to add a little compost, and I'm going to add a little bit of peat moss vermiculite, my seed starting mix that I have left over, so that the soil doesn't get too heavy and cakey because of the compost. And then I'm going to add some alfalfa pellets. And of course you can use any fertilizer, but I'll be adding a little fertilizer with the plants that I add, so the alfalfa pellets are just extra for building the soil, adding body, and of course adding a few nutrients. Alfalfa pellets are really inexpensive, like you can get a gigantic bag for just a few dollars, so I definitely recommend using them in the garden. The bag I have was gifted to me, so I'm definitely using that this season with my plants. But that's all I'm doing, just mixing those things together. And then I'll mix it all up in the soil, and then I'll add it back to my containers, and I'll probably be able to fill 1 or 2 more containers just because now I have more soil volume because of the added ingredients. But that's it. That's the process. It's pretty simple. So take a look. Okay, that's it. So now I'm going to take this soil, fill my containers, and plant in them. I'll show you what that looks like. And then I have some more containers from last year that I'll be doing this exact same process with. So I just do it little by little just because of how much space fits in the wheelbarrow and what's easier to maneuver. Now, as you notice, the only fertilizer I mixed in were the alfalfa pellets, and that's because when I put a plant in the container with the soil, then I always like to add the fertilizer right there with the plant. And that's because fertilizers eventually seep through the soil, and when you first plant a plant, the roots aren't all the way down to the bottom. And every time you water, some of those nutrients seep out of the container. So it doesn't make much sense to put a ton of fertilizer all the way through the container, because by the time the plant's roots get down there, it'll probably have washed away anyway. So you get the most out of your fertilizer by putting it near the top, near where the plant already is, so it can use that, and then eventually the roots will seep down as the fertilizer and the nutrients seep down. So that's why I don't just mix them all the way in. All right, so I'll show you guys a couple of images of the plants that I've planted. I'm in containers this year. I'm growing tomatillos, I'm growing ground cherries, squash, and several herbs, and maybe a few flowers. So I have lots of things that I'm growing in my containers this year. All right, so here are my completed tomatillo and ground cherry containers. And of course I have a few more containers I'm gonna have to empty, refresh, and fill, but I want to show you these. Now I will be mulching these, but because I plant tomatillos really low to the ground, you plant tomatillos deep like you plant tomatoes because they'll grow roots. So they're planted pretty deep, so I just want to give them about a week to grow a little bit, and then I'll get mulch underneath them. Aunt Molly's ground cherry, side, bottom. New Hanover ground cherry. Purple tomatillo. Green tomatillo. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Help this video and this channel get out to more gardeners. I hope you found this content helpful and that you learned that you do not need to throw away container soil, reuse it, just add a little bit to revamp it, and then your plants will be ready to grow and thrive. So until we meet again, have a great one. Bye.